At a time when Americans are rightfully hypersensitive when it comes to issues related to the environment because of reports we keep seeing from the IPCC and the United States government telling us how urgent the threat of climate change is, you'd think that Donald Trump would be a little bit more cognizant of the fact that if he's going to deregulate the industries that pollute and emit greenhouse gas emissions, if he's going to do the bidding of the fossil fuel industry, maybe he should just wait a little bit, because now is not the best time, given that we're all very focused on any and everything that could lead us down the path of catastrophic climate change. But he's still doing everything he can to just allow fossil fuel companies to ruin the planet. And there's another story. I just told you a couple of weeks ago about how he is basically gutting the Clean Water Act, and now he's auctioning off federal land so that way fracking companies can make money off of what we own. So in an op-ed for EcoWatch, the Center for Biological Diversity writes, on Tuesday, the Trump administration offered more than 150,000 acres of public lands for fossil fuel extraction near some of Utah's most iconic landscapes, including Arches and Canyonlands National Parks. Dozens of Utahns gathered at the state capitol to protest the lease sale, which included lands within 10 miles of internationally known protected areas. In addition to Arches and Canyonlands, the Bureau of Land Management leased public lands for fracking near Bears Ears, Canyons of the Ancients, and Hovenweep National Monuments and Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. Utahns have demonstrated their commitment to transition away from dirty fossil fuels through clean energy resolutions passed in municipalities across our state. Yet, these commitments continue to be undermined by rampant oil and gas lease sales, which threaten our public health, public lands, and economy. While Utah's recreational and tourism economies continue to flourish, these attempts to develop sacred cultural, environmental, and recreational spaces for dirty fossil fuels remain a grave and growing threat, said Ashley Soltysak, director of the Utah Sierra Club. Utah is our home, and the reckless sale of our public lands with limited public engagement is simply unacceptable and short-sighted. Fracking in these areas threatens sensitive plants and animals, including the black-footed ferret, Colorado pinkin minnow, razorback sucker, and Graham's beard tongue. It also will worsen air pollution problems in the Uinta Basin and use tremendous amounts of groundwater. Utah just experienced its driest year in recorded history. This is a reckless fire sale of spectacular public lands for dirty drilling and fracking, said Ryan Beam, a public lands campaigner at the Center for Biological Diversity. These Red Rock wonderlands are some of the West's most iconic landscapes, and we can't afford to lose a single acre. Fracking here will waste precious water, foul the air, and destroy beautiful wild places that should be held in trust for generations to come. This lease sale is part of a larger agenda by Trump and Interior Secretary Ryan Zink to ramp up fossil fuel extraction on public lands, threatening wildlife, public health, and the climate. This year, the BLM has offered more than 420,000 acres of public land in Utah for oil and gas extraction. The agency plans to auction another 215,000 acres in March. The Trump administration also has issued new policies which are being challenged in court to shorten public comment periods and avoid substantive environmental reviews. So there's a plethora of reasons why Donald Trump should not be auctioning off public land in Utah to fracking companies. It will pollute the air. They have to use groundwater, which there's water scarcity currently. It threatens wildlife. And furthermore, it's going to harm the planet as a whole. So, there's so many reasons as to why he shouldn't do this, but Donald Trump doesn't care because he's a shill. He basically just gave them a blank check and allowed them to do whatever. No matter the environmental cost, no matter how much degradation their extraction of fossil fuels will cause, he's allowing them to do it anyway. So at a time when we should be banning fracking and moving towards a ban on fracking nationwide, he is opening up more of our public lands. This is not acceptable because we own these public lands, but yet he's saying, you know what, you can just take it and frack on it. It doesn't matter that people in Utah don't want you to do this. not only are we going to let you do this anyway, but we're going to try to shorten the public comment period so we don't actually have a substantive and thorough discussion when it comes to the environmental impact of your actions here. Go ahead, just have at it. I mean, this person is despicable. Donald Trump is an old man, so he's not going to see the worst of what climate change has to offer, but his children will. But he doesn't care, because money is more important than life on the planet to Donald Trump. So this isn't a surprising story by no means. I mean, it's really unsurprising, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's any less important, because what he's doing here is morally reprehensible, and it really shows how shameless and brazen he is, because, again, at a time when we're all glued to our television screens and computer screens looking for information related to climate change because we keep getting devastating report after devastating report, he's still doing it anyway. I mean, we learned this year that there will be a runaway global warming effect that we may not be able to do anything about. Even if we take action now, we may still see a runaway global warming effect. We have the IPCC telling us we've got to act within 12 years and take substantial action in order to avert a climate catastrophe. And his own agency, his own government, with 13 different agencies, released a report saying if we don't take action, not only will climate change kill the U.S. economy, but it's going to kill thousands of people every single year. And he doesn't care. In fact, he denies that report. This guy is an absolute menace to the world, to the environment, to our country. And if we don't get him out in 2020, then I worry about what the world will look like in just 10 years, because we're already seeing the effects of climate change. I mean, think of the consequences. We're seeing record-breaking weather patterns. We're seeing an increased frequency of hurricanes. We're seeing unprecedented wildfires. And not only does he deny the fact that this is all related to climate change, he's still just outright denying the existence of climate change, because he's too stupid to know the difference between weather and climate. Because if it's cold, I guess that means that global warming doesn't exist and it was a hoax. Well, it's very real. It's not a hoax. And what you're doing is you're accelerating the destruction of the environment. Shame on Donald Trump, but saying shame on Donald Trump means nothing, because he has absolutely no shame. He doesn't care. He couldn't care less. So, yeah, this is what we're going to have to deal with so long as he's president.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.